It started as a simple plan, one last summer road trip before college scattered them in different directions. 10 friends, packed into a dark blue Chevy Suburban, laughing as they loaded up coolers, cassette tapes, and a half-broken camcorder that Mark swore still worked. The desert seemed like the perfect backdrop for freedom, wide open skies, empty highways, and the promise of no rules. They left Flagstaff just after sunset, the horizon painted in deep red and gold, the kind of evening that makes you think nothing bad could ever happen. They joked about ghost towns and alien abductions, not realizing how close those jokes would come to truth. By the time they crossed into the first stretch of desert, the radio had gone quiet, just static like the world was slowly fading out behind them. The stars overhead looked too bright, too close, like they were pressing down on the earth itself. They stopped once, near an old gas station that looked abandoned, its sign half hanging, the letters faded beyond recognition. One of them, Jess, said she thought she saw movement inside the store, a shadow or maybe just her reflection in the glass. Nobody wanted to admit they felt uneasy. They laughed it off, turned the music louder, and drove deeper into the dark. As the night grew heavier, the laughter died down. The road stretched endlessly, black and silent, like it was swallowing sound itself. The desert air felt strange, thick, still, almost electric. Every mile took them further from anything familiar, but no one wanted to say it out loud. They passed a rusted road sign that read Coyote Ridge, 7 miles, though none of them remembered seeing it on the map. The camcorder light flickered on, recording their faces, smiling, unaware, the last moments anyone would ever see of them alive. As the Suburban rolled closer to Coyote Ridge, something in the air began to change. The desert, once wide and peaceful, started to feel unnatural, like it was holding its breath. The headlights caught the outlines of strange rock formations, jagged and black against the moonlight, rising like ancient monuments. The radio, which had been silent for hours, suddenly came to life with a low hum. Not a station, not music, just a constant, vibrating tone that seemed to echo through the metal frame of the car. It wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, deep in the chest, like the air itself was pulsing. Jess tried switching the frequency, but every station was the same, static, then a voice, faint and garbled, saying something none of them could quite understand. They stopped the Suburban by the side of the road, the engine ticking in the cool night air. The desert was dead quiet, but underneath that silence, there was something else. A rhythmic clicking, like stones knocking together somewhere far away. Mark stepped out first, flashlight in hand, scanning the dark horizon. "It's probably just the wind," he said, though there wasn't a hint of breeze. When the others joined him, they noticed their phones had no signal, no time display, not even a flicker of battery. It was as if everything electronic was being drained, drawn into the same invisible current humming through the night. Someone joked about it being aliens, but no one laughed this time. The sound from the radio grew louder, higher, until it stopped. Then came the silence. Not the kind you get when the noise fades, but a heavy, absolute silence that made them all look at each other, realizing that even their own breathing felt out of sync with the world. The beam of Mark's flashlight caught something. A figure, standing motionless on the ridge above them, half seen in the dust and moonlight. It didn't move, it didn't wave. It just stood there, like it had been waiting. And for a moment, no one could tell if it was watching them, or if it was remembering them. The next morning, the desert looked almost peaceful, golden sand stretching endlessly, the horizon blurred by the heat. But the Suburban wasn't where they'd left it. It sat a few yards off the road, doors open, as if someone had moved it in the night. Inside, the seats were coated with a thin layer of dust, even though they'd just been there hours earlier. When Jess climbed in, she found the old camcorder sitting on the dashboard, still running. Its battery light was blinking red, and inside was a VHS tape, a new one they didn't remember bringing. Mark popped it out and turned it over in his hands. There was a single word scratched into the label, PLAY. They set up a small TV from the back of the Suburban, connecting the camcorder to it with a tangle of wires. The screen came alive with static, then flickered to a shaky image. Desert sand, a dim blue sky, and the faint sound of breathing. It was their own voices, laughing, distant, recorded from the night before. But then something shifted. The footage cut abruptly to a different scene, same desert, same sky, but the camera was moving on its own. It panned toward the ridge, toward that same figure they had seen. Only this time it wasn't still. It was walking toward the camera, slow, deliberate, until the screen went black. When the picture returned, there was no one in the frame, just the Suburban, empty, doors wide open, filmed from a distance. A cold silence settled over the group, No one spoke for a long time. Jess asked who had filmed it, but everyone swore they hadn't touched the camera since the night before. The timestamp on the tape showed 3:17 a.m., a time when they were all asleep, or thought they were. Mark rewound the tape again, hoping for a glitch or some trick of the lens, but each replay showed the same impossible thing. The desert had recorded something on its own, and now it was showing it back to them, as if to remind them they were never really alone out there. By the third day, the group decided to head toward the nearest town for help, a dusty place called Red Hollow, about 20 miles south of where the last road sign had crumbled into the sand. It wasn't much more than a gas station, a diner, and a few boarded-up shops leaning into the wind. The locals watched them pull in with wary eyes, the kind of look that says you shouldn't be here. Inside the diner, the air was thick with the smell of old coffee and desert heat. When Mark asked the old man behind the counter if he'd heard of Coyote Ridge, the man's hands froze mid-wipe on a glass. "That place doesn't stay still," he muttered, not meeting their eyes. "Road shifts every few years. People go looking, they don't come back the same, if they come back at all." A woman at a corner booth, skin weathered by sun, eyes hollow from too many sleepless nights, called them over. She said she'd lived near the ridge her whole life, and that every summer, strange lights appeared out there. "Not headlights," she whispered. "Something else. They move against the wind." The group exchanged uneasy glances, thinking she was just another small-town storyteller trying to scare outsiders. But then she mentioned the Suburban. "A blue one," she said, "like the one that vanished back in '92. Her voice cracked when she said she'd seen it once, years ago, out there past the ridge. No lights on, just drifting across the dunes as if someone was still driving it. When Jess tried to ask more, the woman only shook her head. "The desert remembers," she said quietly. "It keeps what it wants." Outside, the wind had picked up, carrying with it a faint sound, something between a whisper and a hum, like voices riding the dust. The locals didn't look up. They just closed the diner doors one by one and turned the open sign around. The friends stood in the middle of the street, the sunlight burning overhead, realizing that everyone in that town knew something they didn't. Something that was already too late to forget. That night, they decided to go back. Maybe it was fear, maybe stubborn curiosity, but something about that VHS tape and the way the locals looked at them made leaving impossible. They drove out under a full moon, the Suburban's tires crunching over gravel and sand as the landscape around them grew eerily familiar. The same broken sign, the same twisted ridge line. But this time the air felt colder, heavier, like the desert was holding its breath again. Every shadow seemed to move, every gust of wind carried whispers that faded as soon as they tried to listen. When Mark checked the GPS, it spun endlessly, showing no direction, no coordinates. And then the headlights dimmed, not all at once but slowly, as if something invisible was draining them dry. They parked near the ridge and stepped out, flashlights flickering weakly in the dark. The sand beneath their shoes wasn't just sand anymore. It felt soft, uneven, like it had been disturbed. They followed the faint trail of tire marks leading toward the dunes. The same tracks from their own Suburban, except these ones were older, crusted with layers of dust. Half buried in the sand, they found something glinting under the moonlight. A metal keychain, the kind that Reed wrote 66, still attached to a set of car keys. Jess recognized it instantly. It was hers. But she dropped hers inside the car earlier that day. When she turned to tell the others, the desert went silent again, so completely that she could hear her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Then, from somewhere beyond the ridge, came the faint crackle of static. The same sound from the VHS tape. It rose and fell, like a voice trying to form words through a broken signal. Mark lifted the camcorder, pointing it toward the sound, but the lens fogged instantly, and the battery drained to zero. A shape began to take form in the darkness, the silhouette of a vehicle, lights flickering like fireflies, slowly approaching from the horizon. It looked exactly like their Suburban. The same dent in the door, the same cracked taillight. Only this one wasn't driving toward them, it was moving without sound, gliding just above the ground, passing through the dunes like smoke. And as it drew closer, the static deepened, not from the radio this time, but from the ground itself, humming like the desert was alive and remembering everything it had taken. To this day, no one knows what really happened to those 10 friends in the summer of 1992. The blue Suburban was never found, the second VHS tape remains sealed in evidence, and the desert, as always, keeps its silence. The official reports called it an unsolved disappearance, a case gone cold with no suspects, no bodies, and no answers. But the people who live near Coyote Ridge, they still talk about it. They talk about the lights that move across the sand long after midnight. They talk about the voices that ride on the wind. Laughter, faint and distant, like it's coming from a place time forgot. Some say the desert took them. Others say they never left at all. That what's out there isn't a place, but a memory that replays itself when the stars are right. Sometimes, truckers passing through claim they've seen a Suburban on the horizon, headlights glowing dim and pale, drifting across the dunes without leaving a single track behind. So if you ever find yourself driving that stretch of highway between Flagstaff and Needles, keep your headlights steady. Don't stop for anyone standing in the road. And if you see a blue Suburban in your rearview mirror, don't look twice. Because some roads don't end where they should, they just wait for someone new to follow them. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.